So we are now recording this session. And the first thing I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to show you a PowerPoint presentation about using the Canvas platform. So just get this set up so that you can see it full size. There, you're able to see that PowerPoint all right?
Not yet, but it's going to be loaded.
It's loading up, okay.
Yes.
So when you sign into the Canvas platform, be sure to use the same email address as your username that you use with all of your correspondence to TESOL. And then you create your own password. So the importance of that is that when you sign up for TESOL, for the course, the email address that you used is the email address that TESOL will send things out to. So don't be changing your email address when you sign into Canvas, or they won't be able to find you. So the username is your email, you create a password, and you should review the Canvas homepage. We'll look at that in just a moment. Once you begin the modules, work through them consecutively. Do not jump ahead, because if you jump ahead, then you run the risk of missing a module. If you miss a module or part of a module, then the Canvas platform does not record that you have completed it, and you might not have access to future parts of the platform. Complete each quiz to ensure access to the next modules. So we'll look at these quizzes in just a moment, Zara. These are the quizzes that you'll be doing on the Canvas platform. If you cannot access a module or a quiz, or you have other administrative type questions, you can send an email to Simon Baker at info@tesolcanada.org. I'm sure you've been communicating with
Yeah, I've been in touch with him and I have asked him lots of questions.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's fine. That's what he's there for. Now we're going to take a look at the actual Canvas platform. So we're going to go to that now. Let me just get that set up. I'm trying to stop sharing the screen because I need to stop sharing the screen in order to switch to a different part of my computer here. Okay, so we're now going to have a look at the Canvas platform. And welcome to the other ladies who have joined our call here, Ada and Fatima. Good to have you with us. And this is the first class of this session for your group. My name is Daniel Miller. I'm going to be the instructor on Mondays for you folks. You will have different instructors on Wednesday and Saturday. The instructor you have on Wednesday is a lady who's in Brazil. And your instructor on Saturday is a lady from Iran who has come to Canada and lives in Toronto now. She came to Canada a few months ago. So she'll be your instructor on Saturday.
What's her name? I'm sorry.
The lady on Wednesday, your instructor on Wednesday, is Dr. Anna Patricia China. And the lady on Saturday, her name is Alhem Masagi. So let's go to the Canvas platform now, and we'll have a look at what happens here on the Canvas platform. When you're on the Canvas platform, and this is the home page that I said a moment ago, you should read through the home page. and listen to these videos. And this homepage gives you a lot of valuable information about the course, the design of it, and the philosophy behind it. If you want to see recordings of webinars from previous sessions, go to the announcements tab here in the menu on the left-hand side. And in the announcements tab, you'll see recordings of previous lectures from the past, from different dates. And you can go back to these recordings and listen to these recordings and watch them. So you could get an introduction, the introduction webinar. This is the May of 2022 introduction webinar, which is similar to what we're doing right here today. So every time I do one of these introductory webinars, they're all very similar each time I do them, but they are slightly different. So I might say a few different things in different introductory webinars. So you get the opportunity to go back and listen to some or all of those, or just choose parts of them on the different topics that line up with the modules and with the classes that you're studying. So then we look at the module section, and under modules, I want to draw your attention to the resources spot right here. Go into resources, and this TESOL manual is a very, very good document, very helpful with your assignments and essays and things that you're asked to do. There's a lot of valuable information in it, a lot of good ideas. So I would recommend that you download that PDF. It's free, it's part of the course. So download it to your computer so you have it to look at. This TESOL Canada handbook is also very good, but it's not available right now. It's being updated at the present time. So keep an eye open for it. When that TESOL Canada handbook is available, download it as well, because it's very worthwhile. All these documents are quite useful, but those two particularly are useful documents. So when you're in the modules, after you've looked at your resources here, you come down into the modules and you work through day by day through these different grammar focus days, and then you come to a quiz. So this is where you have regular quizzes, Zarla, to answer your question from a few minutes ago. You get these regular quizzes after the different grammar day units. So these quizzes are testing you on the information in the immediately previous section here in these grammar days. And then you go down a bit further, so you work through after grammar day 12 is finished. You will then have the midterm exam, and the midterm exam is based on modules 1 and modules 2. So a lot of the information that we cover in these webinars in the first 2 or 3 modules, a lot of that information is used on the midterm exam in methodologies and language skills. So if you attend these webinars and take notes and ask questions and participate in the webinars, and if you work through these modules and do all the quizzes that you're asked to do, then you'll be fine when you come to the midterm exam. Now, these quizzes are designed for the teaching English to speakers of other languages. Are any of you doing the teaching Spanish to speakers of other languages?
Just Persian?
Are you doing the TESOL, Zara?
Just for English. I'm just, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I get your point well enough.
Well,
what do you mean?
Some of the students in this group are doing most are doing the teaching English as a second language.
Yes, English as a second language, yeah. No, I thought, because I'm teaching Persian as a second language to some of the American students, as a second language, but I'm going to get this certificate for teaching English as a second language. Yeah.
Okay, so then if you're doing the teaching English as a second language, then you do need to do these quizzes that go through here. But there are
Uh-huh.
some in the course that are teaching, they're doing the teaching Spanish as a second language, and
Language.
some are doing teaching Japanese, and
Mhm.
one is doing teaching Chinese. So those people do not do these quizzes because these quizzes are designed for teaching
English.
English as a second
Yes.
language.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the teaching English as a second language, be sure to do all these quizzes so that you don't miss out on something. Because if you
Mhm.
don't do all the quizzes, then you might not be able to get access to some of these later sections. And in your
Uh,
Canvas platform, if you've got modules that are grayed out, they're not black print, but they're gray print, then it means you have not completed the previous assignments. So you've not had those unlocked. You see where this says complete one item?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a check mark beside complete one item, then it will not unlock these next modules for you. Okay?
Yes. Mhm.
So does that help to answer your question about the quizzes, Zara?
Yeah, but I have a general question about the quizzes. Generally speaking, I wonder if because I've gone through all of these sections before by one of your recordings that you had in that website, and I just I'm just kind of familiar with whatever you're telling to us right now. But I was wondering because I took one of the quizzes or two of the quizzes for twice, and I was wondering um, if for example, I take the quiz and I'm not happy with my score, and I retake the quiz again. Okay, so I was wondering if there is any bad effect on having taking the test or quizzes twice, or if I get a bad score or kind of not good score, if all of this have bad effect on my certificate or my final score or final evaluation on my certificate or not? That's the question
Not
I
at all.
always had.
No, it has no negative impact on your final certification
Okay.
because with each of the quizzes, you are allowed 2 attempts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I took two attempts, but I wasn't happy with my score, and I was a little bit worried about the score, and I was wondering if there's any bad effect on my final exam or the board exam or something like that. So that was the main question that I had about the quizzes.
Well, with these quizzes that are on the Canvas platform that we're looking at right now, with these quizzes that come at the end of each teaching day, each grammar
Yes.
day lesson, if
Hmm.
you don't get good marks, then of course that does affect your overall mark.
Good.
But you do get 2 attempts at each quiz.
Hmm.
So if you're not happy with the first mark, you can try it again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
The Canvas platform will only keep the highest
The
mark
highest one. Yeah.
of each quiz that you take 2 attempts with.
Hmm.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because of this, it takes anxiety when we just see that there's a quiz or test. We might a little bit get so worried that there's something seriously bad is going to happen. So I got my answer. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I understand that. That's good. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment here the screen because I do see somebody who is on the call and your username shows as 23AEEH6WYFP.
Hi, good morning. Yes, I'm sorry. My name is CNA and I was joining a little bit because I couldn't connect, but I will change my name in a moment.
That's fine. If you can do that, I appreciate that because
Thank you.
I like to be able to call you by your name, and I didn't want to call you 23AE.
Thank you very much.
but that's just fine. Do you know how to change your display name?
I'm trying to figure it out, but if you can assist me, I will appreciate it.
If you go down to the bottom right corner of your screen where you see participants, you see the little symbol of a person there?
Yes.
Click on that, and
Yes.
then you see where you come up as 23AE.
Correct.
Right click on the 23AE, and you get quite a long menu, and it says edit display name.
Found it.
So you can click on edit display name. You can type type your type your new name. Oh, there you are,
Yeah, I
Vianney.
just did. Thank you very much.
Vianney, yes. All right. Okay, there we go. So,
Excuse me, can I have some question for you?
yes, Eileen, go ahead.
Yep. I wonder to ask you about the midterm exam. Um, I know this is necessary to use in English to add that, but for me is limited English to write that. So I wanted to ask you what kind of style will be the test in the test. So just let me the collect one of them questions answer A or B, or uh, necessary to writing down some question answers.
Eileen, those are very good questions. So, which certification program are you doing? Are you doing the teaching Chinese to speakers of other language?
Oh, I teaching Japanese.
Japanese. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. All right. So your question is about the midterm exam and the final board exam.
Yes.
So in both of those exams, you will have questions where you're doing a short answer, A or B, or
Yeah.
true or false. You'll have short written responses, and you
Mhm.
will have longer essay written questions as well.
Okay. So,
Now,
uh,
for you, Eileen, because you're doing the teaching Japanese to speakers of other language, you will actually do your exam in Japanese.
yes. Okay. Yeah, I understand. Okay.
So
Mhm.
TESOL will send you a special exam, a link to a special exam. So you will not get exactly the same exam as everybody else. Yours will be designed for teaching Japanese, and
Yes.
you will write your exams in Japanese. You will also write your essays in Japanese and your assignments.
Okay. So,
Okay.
a few parts, I should use in English, right? Some of them questions I should to answer in English, and another questions I can use Japanese. Is it correct?
Well, I believe parts of it will be able to be answered in English, but when you get into these other language exams, you should really send Simon Baker an email and
Mm-hmm.
and ask him to put you in contact with the Japanese speaking instructor, because I don't know who that is, but
Okay.
he can put you in contact with the Japanese speaking instructor. That person can give you information about your exam writing in Japanese.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Okay, because my role is dealing with the teaching English to speakers of other language certification,
you.
and so I mark assignments that people do in English, and I give these webinars in English. But when it gets into the Japanese and the Spanish and the Chinese groups, those people need to contact TESOL directly to get some information from them.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And Vianney, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, I actually was wondering the same because I'm going to get certified to teach Spanish. So I'm guessing my exams and essays and all the workload is going to be in Spanish as well or in English?
You will be writing your assignments in Spanish.
Yep, correct. Same thing. Thank you.
Yes. And most of your exam will be written in Spanish, I expect. But you can get information from Simon Baker. And again, he can put you in touch with somebody who is doing the Spanish marking,
Thank you.
and that person will be able to give you a bit more detailed insight. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So these are all good questions, and I encourage you to ask any questions you might have, because it's by asking questions that we learn in the correct information. So if you have any questions at any point in time, by all means, be sure to ask me questions and we'll go from there. I'm now going to go to another PowerPoint. And this is a brief PowerPoint that I created about first language acquisition. When each of us learns our first language as a young child, every child passes through certain stages of the language acquisition. And this does not apply only to young children learning a first language, but it also applies to adults and older children when they're learning second language, because learning a second language, we go through the same stages that we went through when we learned our first language. And Jacqueline and I were talking about this before everybody else joined the call. And Jacqueline was describing an adult student she had not too long ago, in the recent couple of years. This gentleman was from the Congo, and she found that he was learning the English language in the very same way, the same manner that a young child would learn. And that's exactly correct. That's what happens. So each stage of learning must be completed before the learner, whatever age the learner's at, before that learner can move to the next stage. The reduplication process, the dada type of utterance, is a very common elementary form of communication. So with a young child who begins to speak words for the very first time, will often say dada for daddy or mama for mommy. It's that reduplication where they duplicate the same syllable, and they have that type of utterance at the beginning stages of their speech. Also, telegraphic speech, the economic use of words, where a young child or a learner of a new language does not put an entire sentence together, but we see isolated nouns and individual adjectives just sort of linked together, very economically using words. So, a child might say, Dada go to store, or Mama cook dinner, or Mama cooking, something to that effect. Very economically using the words. The mother or the parent, the primary parent in the child's life, provides social interaction as well as modeling for language acquisition. And these people are extremely important in the role of language learning for young people, for little children, and for adults, for older people. Noam Chomsky, in 1965, designed a theory called language acquisition device, LAD. And he proposed that we all have an innate predisposition to learning language. We are born with the wiring in place. All we need then is practice. So that's the end of that particular slide presentation. And let me just go back to the Canvas platform for a second now. And I want to take you to this spot under modules. We see after grammar day 4, we see first language acquisition and second language acquisition. I'm drawing your attention to the second language acquisition spot right here. And I know I said don't jump ahead, but I'm going to say now I want you to jump ahead to this spot fairly quickly for 2 reasons. One reason is that there's an excellent video here. It's a lecture given by Noam Chomsky, and that you should listen to that video. I listened to that video several times because it's an excellent video, and he is so brilliant in the whole area of language acquisition. You need to listen to that video at least once, but hopefully several times. Then the next thing I want to draw your attention to further down the page, here is your first essay assignment, the foundation essay. So you're given 8 topics here, and you're asked to write an essay that is between 2 to 5 pages on one of these topics. So whenever I give an assignment, or whenever one of the instructors gives you an assignment such as this, you should always consider the due date to be 2 weeks later. So you should aim to submit this foundation essay to TESOL, and you email it to info@tesolcanada.org. So today is January 9th. So I would suggest that you should consider January 23rd as your due date for this foundation essay. Now, because this is a self-study course, we recommend these due dates. If you do not hand this foundation essay in by January 23rd, that's not a problem. If you hand it in a week later, that's just fine. You don't lose late marks. You don't get penalized in any way. And ultimately, because it's a self-paced course, ultimately, you can take up to a year to complete the course. Now, TESOL does not want you to extend this course over a 2 or 3 year period, but certainly if you're a few days later handing an assignment in past the recommended due date, that's not a problem. So the recommended due dates are given to you to help you keep on track with completing things and getting the assignments done. So that's why I suggest January 23rd as your recommended due date for this particular assignment. And to give you an idea of how that assignment works, I've got my foundation essay right here that I did back in, this would have been in June or July of 2020 that I did. So I chose topic number 8, choose 2 or 3 methods of language teaching and discuss the merits of each. So I chose my 2 or 3 different methodologies, and we're going to be looking at all these methodologies in the very near future. So I chose 2 or 3 of them. I talked about them. Excuse me. And I did my little essay on that particular topic. And my essay was a total of 3 pages long. So that gives you an idea. Excuse me. That gives you an idea of how to put together the foundation essay. I'll just make a little note here for you. You'll come across a number of little videos in the Canvas platform that are presented by Peggy Marcy. Be sure to listen to her videos. They are excellent and very informative. And you'll see them throughout the Canvas modules. I apologize for my coughing.
Jacqueline here. Can I just ask a question? For formatting, is there APA or MLA or?
APA is the preferred
Okay,
formatting. MLA is fine as well, but APA is the preferred. Yes,
okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions, folks? Now, keep in mind, this foundation essay is just a brief little 2 to 4 page essay. It's not a huge, long master's thesis. Don't get carried away. So keep your comments fairly short and be precise and to the point. So it's not a huge, long essay, okay? But I wanted to make sure to tell you about that foundation essay. So again, that's under the second language acquisition tab in the modules. And you scroll down modules. Just after day 4, you'll find the second language acquisition tab. That's where it is. All right. Any questions?
Excuse me, Daniel, can you explain about, I got disconnected from, from the meeting, and I just,
Okay, so Zara, this is under the second language acquisition tab. This is where
about
your foundation
Can
essay
you
is.
tell me a bit, I had the same.
I couldn't really understand your question, Zara.
I mean, was
Your voice is
sure
breaking up.
recorded it.
So I was just discussing the foundation essay.
About the essay. The essay,
Your voice is breaking up badly. I can't understand what you're saying.
right. I mean, are we
Could you try saying that again?
module four module, which number was second language? Are we going to write an 2 weeks or
Well, this is the first essay. This is the first assignment. And then in the next week or so, I will be giving you another assignment, which is called conversation activities. So we'll be doing the conversation activities in a couple of weeks' time. So you will be receiving an assignment from me that is outside of the quizzes. So these are extra assignments. These are the essays and the written assignments that we ask you to do. So that's what I was showing here.
uh-huh.
Well, every couple of weeks, there will be another written assignment of some kind. Okay?
I know.
So I was just showing you.
Loyola. I was wondering if we need to write an every.
No, you do not need to write an essay every 2 weeks. There are different assignments. So this foundation essay is the first essay that you write. But then the next assignment will be the conversation activities. So on this menu at the left-hand side of Canvas, I'll just show you here. On this menu at the left-hand side, under the Assignments tab, you can see all the quizzes that are listed.
Or after a few modules? That's my question.
Well, after every couple of
I need to
modules,
write
there's an assignment.
essay.
Well, you do the first essay now, and then in a couple of weeks' time, there will be conversation activities assignment. Then after that, there's a 4 skills lesson plan. So you get different assignments throughout the course. And we recommend a completion date and a submission date for you. But like I said, because it's a self-paced course, if you're a little bit late handing the assignment in, that's not a problem, okay? So we looked at the first language acquisition a moment ago, and now we're going to look at second language acquisition. So the classical conditioning, learning is understood as an observable change in performance on the part of an individual. It is brought about in two distinct ways, either of which involves the mechanisms of stimulus and response. Creative learning. Learners bring to the learning process their creative ability to perceive and detect relationships and to recognize analogies and contrasts. They are interactive, influencing the environment, and conscious of at least a part of the processes of language acquisition. A living language is one that the student learns to think in it. So when you speak your mother tongue, and obviously you're all very competent at speaking English and understanding English. So when you speak and think in English, and then you say something in English, it's a living language for you because you're actually thinking in the language that you speak in. Now, English is my native language. I speak a little bit of French, but not a lot. But when I think in French, I don't always think directly in French. Very often I will think in English, translate it into French in my mind, and then say the French words. So French is not a living language for me because I don't think directly in French when I actually speak it. And with a living language, the words allow us to represent nonverbal concepts and to deal abstractly with experiences. There are two types of motivation. One is intrinsic. This is when we have an internal desire to learn something for personal growth or self-improvement. The second type of motivation is extrinsic. That's when the motivation is an external requirement. Perhaps an employer requires the second language to be learned for business purposes or whatever the situation is. And here we have Noam Chomsky again, the American linguist, philosopher, cognitive scientist, and historian, a major figure in analytic philosophy, one of the founders of cognitive science, and he played a pivotal role in the decline of linguistic behaviorism. He was particularly critical of B.F. Skinner. You'll come across these names and these references as you read through the Canvas platform. Here's a diagram of Noam Chomsky's language acquisition device. It involves linguistic input, which feeds into the linguistic acquisition device, the language acquisition device that is already inside our brain, according to Chomsky. And then this generates the theory of language, the phonology, morphology, the semantics, the syntax. All of these determine the child's or the learner's grammatical competence, the comprehension of other speech, and speech production. And here's another diagram of the mechanism of innate theory. Now, notice when I built this PowerPoint, it's always important to give a reference for where you got your information from. So in both of these slides, I copied these images from an internet search. And so I put that down as the point of reference, as the source of my information. You always need to give credit wherever the credit belongs when you're providing anything. Another theorist with the second language acquisition is Stephen Krashen. With his theory, second language acquisition develops exclusively, Krashen believes, through comprehensible input. That is, second language students acquire language competence by exposure to language that is both understandable and meaningful to them. By concentrating on meaning, they subconsciously acquire form. How do you apply Krashen's theory in the classroom? We use Krashen's ideas about comprehensible input. Between classes, ask your students to watch something, listen to something, or read something that they can relate to and comprehend. Krashen's ideas, when combined with others that provide form and structure, will enable learning. As with so many theories and so many different topics, when it comes to language learning, it's a good idea to take the best thoughts and the best points from many different creative thinkers and put them together. If we just follow one person's ideas, if you only follow Krashen or you only follow Noam Chomsky, then you just might not have the best approach to your teaching. By putting together the thoughts of several different people and ideas from different sources, you're going to have a more rounded approach to your teaching of language acquisition. In 1994, Douglas Brown, in his writing, English Language Teaching in the Post-Method Era Toward Better Diagnosis, Treatment, and Assessment, he said, we did not need a new method. We needed instead to get on with the business of unifying our approach to language teaching and of designing effective tasks and techniques informed by that approach. That's taken from the Canvas platform. Brown had 12 principles. These are his 12 principles of language learning. Now, I'm not going to read the list through to you. You can have a look at it and you'll see this information in the Canvas platform as you work through the different modules as well. But you see in here the motivation, the intrinsic motivation. Now remember, intrinsic motivation means the learner really wants to learn the language because they want to improve themselves. It's for their own benefit. He then goes on with the diagnosis, treatment, and assessment sections of language learning. And if we look at each one of those categories, each one of those headings, we see that the diagnosis begins with curricular plans and continues as an ongoing monitoring process in the classroom. Language curricula call for an initial study of what Richards in 1990 calls situational needs, or the context of the teaching. Situational needs include the country of the institution, the socioeconomic and educational background of students, the specific purposes the students have in learning a language, the institutional constraints that are imposed on a curriculum. These constraints could be the size of a classroom, that you might have too many students in a class. There might not be enough textbooks for the entire class to have a textbook. There are institutional constraints that occur. In the treatment section of language learning, think of as courses of study or better, sets of learning experiences designed to target the learner needs exposed by diagnostic assessments. 38 language teaching techniques were categorized by Crooks and Chaudron in 1991. These were controlled drills, dialogues, reading aloud, display questions, answers, etc., to semi-controlled referential questions, answers, cued narratives, information gap activities, etc., all the way through to thinking about free types of language teaching, such as role plays, problem solving, interviews, discussions, etc. Consider as well an abundance of whole class, group work, and pair work activities that we have at our disposal. In the assessment section of language learning, methods of old offered nothing in the way of assessment techniques. Today, the language testing field has mushroomed into a highly developed and sophisticated field with numerous facets. Increased emphasis on ongoing assessment of students' performance as the course progresses, or what has commonly been called formative evaluation. With formative processes of assessment in place, the teachers can make appropriate mid-course pedagogical changes to more effectively reach goals. The notion that evaluation must be confined to summative, end of term, or end of unit tests alone is vanishing. That's why on the Canvas platform, you have the unit tests, the quizzes, on a very regular basis after each day of grammar lessons. You have those unit quizzes. You also have the summative testing, the midterm test, and the final board exam. You have the summative, but you have the cumulative along the way type of testing, which is very crucial to the learning process. However, it is important to note that summative evaluation is also an important component of a language program. The difference between current summative testing philosophy and the presupposition behind methods that one size fits all can be seen in a wide variety of assessment batteries that cover both production and comprehension skills, a range of assessment tasks, individualized, including computer adaptive tests, and increased attention to the communicative properties of tests. Does anybody know what computer adaptive tests are? Can somebody describe that for me? Do you know what a computer adaptive test is?
I think it's a
Don't.
kind of, can I talk?
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's a kind of test that it will evaluate you according to your level. For example, if you pass the first one, the easiest one, then you can go to the next one. I mean, it's not like one fit for all.
It's, can I say that?
Yes.
It depends, actually, it depends on the student's level from easy to a difficult question. So for example, if you answer some of the easy question, back to what our friend said, I don't know who was telling that, but if you're answering some of the easy question, just makes the questions more difficult and more difficult based on the level of the students, not based on the whole. Actually, they don't have any kind of full of question, but it has been selected based on the students' level of language learning. That's my understanding, I guess.
Yes, and you are both correct. If a student answers a question correctly, then the computer adaptive test will give them another question that's more difficult on a different topic, perhaps. Because if the computer identifies that the student understands a particular topic or is answering questions correctly, the computer will not continue to ask questions on that topic, because the computer is searching for topics that the student cannot answer easily. That's the best way to test the greatest extent of the student knowledge. So yes, you both had a good answer there. Thank you very much, ladies.
Yep.
All right, we're going to go to yet another PowerPoint presentation now. And this one is about introduction to second foreign language teaching. The advantages of teaching second language, and how do we prepare English as a foreign language environment activities. There are a list of thoughts here, and they include homework that involves speaking tasks or listening to the radio or watching TV and reading newspaper articles. Encourage students to seek out opportunities for practice. Encourage students to seek corrective feedback from others. Have students keep a log or a diary of extra class learning. Plan and carry out field trips. Now, of course, during the pandemic, and the pandemic is not over yet, so COVID is still around, and COVID is going to be here for a long time yet into the future. But during the early days of the pandemic, we were not able to do field trips with students. However, you can do virtual field trips. There are many art galleries, museums, and many places on the face of the earth that have virtual tours of their facilities up on the internet. And so you can arrange with students to come online, and through a Zoom call, you can visit different galleries and look at the artwork and museums and look at the history of pieces. You can plan social mixers with native English speakers. And again, you can do this online. You can have a Zoom meeting. You could have a Zoom dinner, and everybody brings their dinner to the table, and yet they're meeting through the Zoom technology or Skype, whatever technology platform you choose to use. So these are ways of creating an environment where English as a foreign language is able to be taught. Even inviting speakers into the classroom. So you could invite a guest speaker into your classroom. I've had TESOL students from the past couple of years. I've had other TESOL students who invited me to join a classroom online and visit their classroom online as a guest speaker. And I would go in and I would teach a particular topic or speak about a particular project. So you can have guest speakers in the classroom, whether it's physical reality or whether it's online. And adaptability with the technology we have available to us today, when it's working, with our technology, we're able to do a lot of things that we were not able to do 15 or 20 years ago even. So take advantage of the technology and use it to your best advantage with your English or your second language teaching. It's also important to keep in mind cultural factors. The cultural factors in the classroom are the cultural factors that the students bring with them from their native home. And it's the cultural factors that are part of the acculturation process. When somebody arrives in a new culture, the acculturation is the process they go through when they're adapting to their new cultural environment. And when somebody is in a new cultural environment, it's important for them to preserve the culture from their native land that they grew up with. So they should observe festivities and observe rituals and and observe traditional aspects of their culture to keep their culture alive. It's important to discuss cross-cultural differences with students in a class, emphasizing that no culture is better than another, but that cross-cultural understanding is an essential facet of learning a language. Include among your techniques the particular activities or materials that illustrate the connection between language and culture. Teach your students the cultural connotations, especially of sociolinguistic aspects of language, and screen the methods for material that may be culturally offensive. We don't want to say or do or show things that are offensive to people of different cultures, and different cultures have different traditions in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And it's important to be mindful of these things with the students in our classes. Expectations. This is a list of expectations that teachers have of students and students have of teachers. Teachers are often expected to have all the answers. Well, you do not need to write these charts down because these are in the Canvas platform. You'll come across them. Teachers are expected to have all the answers, but that's not true. As teachers, and if you've done any teaching, you know that you don't always have all the answers. And you're allowed to say that you don't know the answer to something. If you don't know the answer, you can either provide somebody with information about who they can contact, or you can go and help them find out where to find the answer. Many people believe that it's important to suppress emotions, not only teachers, but students. Yet, it's okay to express emotions and express satisfaction or happiness. So when I have people, students in these webinars, such as yourselves, and you give answers to a question, and I say, thank you very much, you did a good job, that was a good answer. That's an emotional response that is congratulatory to you. And it's important to include things like that in our teaching environments. Students appreciate it, and it helps to move a class along in a much more positive manner. Interpreting intellectual disagreement as personal disloyalty. We should be able to interpret differences as an interesting exercise, not as an indication of disloyalty. We should reward students for accuracy in problem solving and reward the students for innovative approaches to problem solving. There are some teachers who believe that students should speak in class only when called out by the teacher. But students admire the friendliness of teachers, and students should be encouraged to volunteer their thoughts. Teachers should never lose face. To do so also means losing the respect of students. Teachers can admit when they are wrong and still maintain the students' respect. My experience has been that the students respect me more if I admit that I made a mistake when I said something and give them then the correct information. They respect me more than if I just left an incorrect piece of information hanging out there. And students expect the teacher to show them the way, and teachers expect students to find their own way. Well, I believe that there's a combination between these two thoughts that is a reality that works much better. So, yes, to a certain extent, I believe my role is to offer guidance to students in my classroom and give you some ideas about how to proceed with certain things. But I also believe that the students need to do some of their own searching and find their own way in assignments. And as you're working on assignments and projects, and you then develop questions, you ask questions, and that allows me to help guide you even more accurately in your searching process with your learning process. Do those make sense, folks? Any comments or
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you. It's all clear.
Okay. Let's have a brief look at second language. This means second language, language 2 methodologies. For thousands of years, the grammar translation method was the primary method of learning a new language. The grammar translation method, also referred to as the classic method, relied on structure and vocabularies and focused on reading and writing. There was really no speaking and listening activity in grammar translation method. Towards the end of the 1800s and the early 1900s, the direct method was developed, more naturalistic, and this is very similar to the way that children learn their first language. It focused on conversation, pronunciation. There was a lack of grammatical structure, and the skills that were developed were focused around communication. And the direct method was used by Charles Berlitz, who created his own method called the Berlitz method. He wanted to have his own name on a methodology, so he called Berlitz method. So the direct method and the Berlitz method are very similar. They're virtually identical. So in the 1920s, 1930s, the direct method had a pretty good grasp in educational institutions, but by the late 1930s, the grammar translation method had taken over again because it was a cheaper method to run. It didn't require small classrooms. Teachers did not have to have specialized training, and the educational institutions were transitioning back to the grammar translation method. But then the Second World War broke out. And when World War II broke out, and when the United States was pulled into the Second World War after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, the audiolingual method was born, and it was also referred to as the Army method, because the U.S. military was training its soldiers in second language acquisition. It was training them to speak the languages of allied and enemy countries, so that when their military personnel went overseas, if they were captured by the enemy, they needed to be able to speak the foreign language with a native sounding, a very natural sounding accent. So just imagine somebody from the United States in the military was over in Germany, and if they were captured by the Germans, that American military person would need to be able to speak German as if they were a native speaking German individual, because if they didn't speak German very well, they would give away the fact that they were not a native speaker, and they would be identified as a spy, and of course they would probably be executed. So this became a matter of life and death, this second language ability. So that's the audiolingual method. Very similar to the Rosetta Stone program, which you might be familiar with. It's based on pronunciation and native speaking features. It uses memorization drills. There's no grammar, based on mimicry. So if I'm the teacher and I say a sentence, I might say a sentence like, hey, diddle, diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. You would be required to mimic what I said and copy exactly what I said and pronounce the words so they sound very native speaking sounding. So that was the audiolingual method. in the days of the Second World War. In the 1970s in the United Kingdom, another methodology became developed known as the Notional Functional Syllabus, NFS. And this was linked to the communicative language teaching methodology. We show you this history of these methodologies because these are all leading up to CLT, or communicative language teaching. And this chart, which is also on Canvas, so you don't need to write it down, but this chart gives you detailed comparison between the audiolingual method from the days of the Second World War and the communicative language teaching, which is currently the most respected and most widely used method of language teaching around the globe. So CLT, communicative language teaching, is sort of the best combination of the most beneficial aspects from all these previous methodologies. So if you take the best ideas and the best things from each of these methodologies and put them all together, roll them all together into a package, then you come up with the CLT, the communicative language teaching. Because in CLT, it is anticipated that any device which helps the learners is accepted, varying according to their age, interest, etc. So the CLT belief is that whatever they need to do, however they need to process the language acquisition, that's fine as long as the student is learning the new language. So that's the CLT. The specifics of communicative language teaching are learner-centered features, focuses on learners' needs and goals, gives some control to the student through group work, for example. It includes the input of students that do not presuppose objectives in advance, and it allows for student creativity and innovation. It enhances a student's sense of competence and self-worth. The cooperative features, the collaborative efforts are crucial as part of the CLT specifics. Interactive learning, pair work and group work, real-world contexts, meaningful communication, performing classroom tasks, practicing oral communication, and writing to and for real audiences. What do we mean when we say real audiences? How can students write to and for real audiences? Anybody give me an example of what a real audience would be?
Writing to like real life situations that the students will encounter or need to use.
Yes, that's good. Such as what, Jacqueline?
Writing emails, letters to make appointments.
That's good. Yes.
Yeah, ordering at a restaurant, like doing a lot of role playing for everyday tasks, grocery shopping, asking for help.
Yes.
Those
They
kinds
could even be writing to ask questions about something that is advertised for sale in a magazine or online. So real life situations. That's right. Thank you. Whole language education. The whole language is a label that has been used to describe cooperative learning, student-centered learning, a focus on community of learners, focus on the social nature of language, the use of authentic natural language, and meaning-centered language. It's an integration of the 4 skills. What are the 4 skills we're talking about here? Can somebody list the 4 skills that we're referring to here as being integrated?
Okay, the first is listening, speaking, writing, and speaking.
That's correct. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Those are the 4 skills. Thank you. So some additional 21st century methods. C21 just means 21st century. Some additional methodologies and approaches. One is TPR, that stands for Total Physical Response. This approach is a combination of action and talk. So it works very well for young children. They might learn a song. They might sing a song to help them learn a language or learn new words. So one song that works quite effectively to demonstrate this is Simon Says. So you have the teacher in front of a classroom of young children. The teacher says, Simon says that I am holding up a pen. So Simon says, I'm holding a pen, and the students say, Simon says, I'm holding a pen. And so the students can then repeat everything the teacher says. The immersion approach to language learning, it creates an environment. The student is very often in a homestay or in a they're being hosted by a family, so that they might attend classes at a school during the daytime, and then in the evening they spend the evening and they stay overnight in the home of native speaking people in whatever language, whatever country they've gone to. This helps to tremendously improve fluency. The lexical method is focusing on vocabularies and looks specifically at idioms, expressions, slang, local terms. It's a naturalization approach to language learning. I'm just stopping for a second there. Sorry, Zara, sorry, I had to mute you there because there was some background static coming through your microphone. It was interfering with the sound. So I just muted your microphone. And then there's the humanistic approach. With the humanistic approach being more casual, this focuses on the social and the emotional priorities and those types of interests. The learner-centered methodology is needs-based. It's a modified syllabus based on the needs of the student. What is the best way to find out what the student's educational needs and expectations are? What's the best way to find that out?
Asking them?
Exactly. Yes. Perfect. If you want to know what a student is hoping for, ask them, what are you hoping for? What is your expectation? And then you're more clearly able to provide information and provide an approach that helps to deal with that. So additional updated 2020 methods, the outcome-based method, this ideology, this philosophy of education, the outcomes-based method actually was designed in 2017 by the University of Hong Kong. And you'll come across this in your modules of information. And the outcomes-based approach to teaching is simply identifying with the curriculum. You identify where you want the students to end, and then you work backwards to develop the curriculum that leads to that final outcome. I always refer to this as designing curriculum in a backwards format. So you begin with curriculum design, you begin with how you want it to end, and you work backwards to develop the processes to get you to your final outcome. Now, in all of the teaching that I did back over the years, and I've been teaching for over half a century, I always did an outcome-based approach. I just never called it that because I had never heard that reference until recently with this TESOL course. But it's a system that works very well. See, the problem with curriculum design is that if you begin with an idea and then you try to develop that into a curriculum outline, a course outline, or a unit outline, it can build and build, and it can grow and become very big. And it can become oversized. So that's why it's best to decide, what do you want as your outcome, and then work backwards through the process and the mechanism that you're going to use to develop the outcome. And you're able to put a better controlled system in place so that you don't end up with this massive process that becomes unwieldy and incomprehensible. The teaching and learning environment has changed dramatically in the last decade, especially, and particularly in the last couple of years during the pandemic. The teaching and learning environment with education going online for a couple of years, and online learning, online education is not going to go away. I believe that online education is going to increase into the future beyond what we ever expected it would, because it's here to stay now, and so many of us have figured out how to do it. We're just going to adapt it and integrate that into our education processes. Social media interactive approach. Social media during the pandemic, the social media platforms, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all these different social media platforms, and WhatsApp and Telegram, these all became so heavily used, and so the use of them increased so dramatically that it provided for global communication that we had never experienced before. There are a number of people from previous TESOL classes that I taught over the last couple of years. There are a number of people in Iran and Korea who I still stay in touch with, and some across Canada as well. And I never would have met these people except for doing the TESOL course, and I never would have done the TESOL course if the pandemic had not hit. Because as I was explaining to Jacqueline before everybody else joined, I signed up for TESOL for two reasons. Number one was to have something and learn a new idea that could generate some additional income for me, but also to give me something to do to fill my time. Because all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, I had all those 24 hours of every day. I was not able to do my normal work, which was working as a financial services advisor. I'd done that for the previous 30 years, and I wasn't able to go out and meet with clients anymore. So I did the TESOL certification and started teaching online, and met all these people from all around the globe. And I still communicate with many of them, and we have great conversations. We've developed friendships, and it's absolutely fascinating. I'm learning about other cultures, and so life goes on, and life is a learning curve. Also, the ability to do webinars and the increase in online presentation skills and the learning of how to do this. So that was a learning curve for sure. when the pandemic hit. At that time, I was teaching at a university in Toronto, and I had always done that teaching in person. But all of a sudden, in May of 2020, when the course began, when my course began, I was required to teach it online. And I had to do a very fast learning curve of figuring out how to teach online and introduction to MOOC processes and the Moodle platform and the whole concept of e-learning and, you know, presentation skills and all these things came into play very quickly at the beginning of the pandemic. And now, a couple of years later, now it's become a very easy skill for me to work with. So many different things have come out of the pandemic, some good and some bad, but we've definitely improved our learning curve, and we've definitely improved our technological capabilities as a result of the pandemic. These are other socially integrated approaches and online study methods, the web-based apps and software, MOOC courses. We're going to be talking about MOOC courses in the near future. Does anybody know what MOOC stands for? What are the words that this MOOC acronym stands for? What do those letters stand for? Anybody?
The online school, is that correct?
Well, it's close. Massive open online course.
Okay.
Yeah, good try. Massive open online course.
Okay.
So MOOC courses, those are things like TEDx and edX and Coursera, Udemy. Those platforms have many MOOC courses. There are online, fully online courses and hybrid courses. A hybrid course is partly online and partly in person in class, so it's a combination. And then there are mobile applications. There's Twitter, IMO, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and WhatsApp, online language groups and language and conversation exchange. All these different applications of education, many of which have developed tremendously in the last couple of years. In our next class, we're going to start looking at conversation activities and then 4 skills of teaching languages. Conversation activities focus on speaking and listening. The 4 skills, teaching languages, focuses on speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So it's all 4 skills. But first, we'll cover conversation activities in our next class, and that's speaking and listening. And again, if you have any questions, you can send an email to info@tesolcanada.org. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Daniel. This was a very informative class. Thank you very much. My apologies that I was late for the few minutes, and I'm wondering that maybe in the first 10 minutes or so, you say something that I should be aware of.
Well, you know, it's not really a problem if you arrive late, but I appreciate your apology, Vanny. So that's not really a problem because you can always later watch the recording. You can
Thank
watch
you.
the recording of any webinar and find out any information that was discussed at the beginning. So I'm just looking back at the Canvas platform. Excuse me. And on the Canvas platform, you were here when I was talking about the foundation essay?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Okay. So I think some of the things that I might have mentioned right at the very beginning was to be sure to go through all the modules, be sure to do every quiz when you come to it. Don't skip these quizzes because the Canvas platform tracks the quizzes that you complete. And if you don't complete a quiz, then it might not allow you access to a future module, a future part of the course. So be sure to do all these quizzes as you come to them. And you can go to the announcements section here, the announcements tab, and you can look back historically at other lectures that were given in past webinar presentations for past groups of students. So you could go to last November, for instance. Here are the first and second lectures of last November. You can also go to the TESOL Canada TESOL certification YouTube channel. Have you been to that YouTube channel yet?
I haven't, but I will have a look this afternoon.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that link in the chat box for you.
Thank you. And another question, Daniel, because I'm getting certified to teach Spanish, so then my next step should be contacting Simon to see if I will be doing the modules in Spanish as well, or just the assessments and essays.
Yes, I would suggest that you should send an email to Simon and just ask him for clarification about what he wants you to do in English and what he wants you to do in Spanish.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. So there in the chat box, I have put that YouTube link for the TESOL Canada YouTube. And when you go to that link, it will give you, let me just show you what it'll give you. So I opened up that link and it gives you different, oh, here I am doing a presentation about TESOL Canada certification. So it gives you recordings of other webinars previously, okay? So these are fairly recent. This TESOL Canada YouTube channel is quite recent. So you can go to see this one was done. Here's the recording from 5 months ago. So this was basically, this recording would be very similar to today's recording, but this is what was done 5 months ago. So you can go to the TESOL Canada YouTube channel and you can see recent, you can see the recent videos that have been posted there, or you can go to the Canvas platform. I just had to stop sharing so I could go to a different tab. And in the Canvas platform, you get to see recordings of webinars from a little bit beyond the last 5 months. So you've got a couple of options there. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Daniel, I have a very quick question. Um, as you said, there are lots of materials in the Canvas, and as you told me, for example, I had watched one of videos about exactly the same of this of today's webinar. I wonder if you're going to post the new materials on again, because mostly lots of materials belong to 2022, I guess. So a little bit old. They're not that old, but they're old. I don't know what, should I go forward, exactly what you're going to just share on Canvas, or we can just work on based on the previous material that you have put on the Canvas? That's a question that I don't know. I sometimes maybe I get confused because I don't know exactly what exactly, and what should I be based on?
Well, definitely, Zara, definitely it's best if you look at recordings that are more recent.
Yeah, my question is about the other materials, like quizzes, like the all of them are the same. Is that right?
The quizzes don't change. The
Okay.
quizzes have been the same on the Canvas platform for a few years now, so the quizzes don't change.
Because when I was going to take a quiz, I just found the mistake in one of the quizzes, which hadn't been updated. So that was the wrong, I just answered the right question, but that was a kind of mistake. But I was sure that I just answered the right question because of this mistake that I found in the quiz. So I thought maybe you are going to upgrade the right answers in the quizzes.
I'm not sure I really understand the question.
The quizzes had 20 questions, and I was sure about the right answer. But when I chose the right answer, it showed me the wrong. I was wrong. So I thought because I had the same problem with one of the students who asked this question of you. This is the first webinar that you had held maybe a few years ago. That was my question.
Okay, if you have questions about incorrect answers in these quizzes,
Okay,
then you should definitely send an email to Simon Baker,
sure.
because
Okay.
I'm not involved with that aspect of the course.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot make any changes to those
I
things.
know.
And
Okay, so I
if you think there's an incorrect answer posted, then you should send Simon Baker an email about it
definitely, okay, I will do that.
and discuss with him. Okay,
Sure.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for your time today. Thank you for attending the session.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So everybody have
Anna.
a good week. I will see you again next Monday. I'm going to stop the recording now.